Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich. Today's video, we are going to watch 4 dungeon masters working their magic. And in that, you may see some things that you might be able to grab hold of to help you become a better creator, a better dungeon master. But also, what's interesting here is there may be some tidbits that you can pull from to help you become a better player. Because, last time I checked, the dungeon masters here and at your table aren't exactly sitting there talking to themselves. Players are involved. So notice also how the players react to that dungeon master, even if it is only to sit and remain silent. So the first dungeon master we're going to look at will be none other than Matt Mercer himself, Critical Role. Second will be Chris Perkins. Third will be Jeff Kanata. And last will be Deborah Ann Woll. The last two, Cannata and Woll, are currently my favorite dungeon masters. I think Deborah Ann Woll is the best DM that I have ever seen play and whatnot. Of course, there's not a massive sample size. I haven't seen every dungeon master everywhere at every table, but if I was to throw my own hat in the ring and put a little pat on my back and say I'm a pretty damn good DM, I learn a lot by watching these 4 at all times in many, many videos. And I think as long as, regardless of your strength, your skill, your confidence as a dungeon master or a player, never, ever think that you've got it all figured out. I always say it, there's no right, wrong, best, only way. As long as you keep an open mind and you're welcome to learn more, you can become better. And that's the point of this video. The other thing I was thinking through is if I ran out of coffee or the world ran out of coffee, would my videos cease to exist? Perhaps. Let's sit back and watch Matt Mercer and the wonders of Critical Role together. And then we'll talk through each one individually. Here we go.
Where we had talked about
That's where you were discussing
setting a sigil, land in.
Right.
And they turn, we're stuck.
In my opinion, we set the sigil and keep moving down to see what this place is.
Well,
We end up chasing them. I don't want to be surprised.
The sigil's the one, Jester sigil is the one that we want to make sure we're there for. We could set the Intuit charges if we feel like we can kind of continue to set traps along the way. I feel like it almost starts with Intuit charges. Intuit? Inuit. Intuit?
No, into it.
Intuit. Not definitely.
Inuit.
Not that. Yeah, okay. Intuit charges, and then ending with, you know, the big thing that you have. I'm distracted. Symbol.
Matt, sitting back listening. So think of how important that is how do you best formulate what you need to say next to contribute to any conversation? Sit back first as a dungeon master or player and just listen, because they will often provide you with the path that you need to go to know where you need to interject. So as they're kind of formulating this plan, in just a moment, you'll see Matt kind of chime in and give a little more behind the scenes info, which helps inform the direction of the players even further, which ultimately leads towards what we're all going for, which is just progression, to feel like we're not kind of slowing down with our pacing. Like the questions are being answered before they're even asked.
Yes.
Reminded me of a thing.
Member of the indigenous people of northern Canada.
That's Halloween ever.
Alaska. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. I was pretty sure I knew it about it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay. So what do? We keep moving forward, or and the brown mold is on its way in. It's coming in.
Unless someone's got some ice.
For clarity, which direction is the brown mold bleeding in from? From where we came, or from?
No,
where
the brown mold was what he saw was actually kind of piked up in the corners here, and it just expanded to kind of swoop into where the fire was.
Forms in those.
As you step back,
just like
it doesn't follow you. It just goes to where.
Right there. That is outstanding as a dungeon master. So here's the thing. When Marisha, I forget who she's playing, Bo, I think? Beauregard? Bunk? When she was explaining sort of, hey, here's what we should do next as the group, and she kind of got mixed up between Intuit, I think, and Inuit, right? I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but Eskimos or northern people, whatever it may be, that live in the north or in the Antarctic or something, there was a little bit of confusion, right? But anyway, she just went with it elegantly. Everyone said, no, it's definitely not Inuit. But why do I bring that up? There was a point when Travis looked that up on Google to sort of confirm.
Reminded me of a thing.
Member of the indigenous people of northern Canada.
That's Halloween ever.
Alaska. Yeah.
Right? He went to confirm what that meant. And that's not attached to the game. That's out of game stuff. So what you notice is as the players are trying to devise a plan, you get a little bit of a little interjection, a little moment of distraction where one player is leaning into something that was said earlier that's outside of the game. I'm not saying you're losing the players, but as a dungeon master, Matt is very aware that the players are starting to circle around themselves and not able to figure out exactly what they need to do. And one of the big defining moments is when Matt doesn't only explain what the brown mold is doing, but he gives that definitive statement of saying the brown mold is sort of not threatening you immediately. And what that does is that fosters decision. It allows the players to sort of settle on some decisive points and some options because it's sort of answered a big question for them of, as I'm working through what the best plan is, do we still need to worry about this threat? And Matt kind of giving the little bit of description that he just did was very, very elegant, okay? I'm going to rewind that real quick, and let's play through that one more time. And notice when Travis, you'll hear him mention something about the Inuit and what they really were, and Marisha kind of mixing those two words up. But that little indication where the table is sort of circling around themselves and floundering a bit, and Matt chimes in at the right time after listening and realizing, okay, these guys need a little more direction. They need a little more hand-holding. And notice how he brings about that part where he gives them a sort of definitive statement on, here's the threat. You can now make a decision based on what I've now given to you. So let's back up a little.
Yes.
Reminded me of a thing.
Member of the indigenous people of northern Canada.
That's Halloween ever.
Alaska. Yeah.
From where we came or from
No,
where
the brown mold was what he saw was actually kind of piked up in the corners here, and it just expanded to kind of swoop into where the fire was.
forms in those
As you step back,
just like
it doesn't follow you, it just goes to where the heat is
Okay.
of the flames.
Right there. And that's kind of where we're going to end this video, right? The players may be asking, as we make this plan, what if the monster follows us? As you step back, it doesn't follow you. They now have some more information that they can make a more informed decision, right? In options, when you're giving players options of what to do next, and you heard them say that, what do we do? What's next? When you have all these options, the difficulty with options is you're just never sure if the option you pick is the right one. Or there's always that second guessing of, if we pick this, later on, we should have picked the other one. We had a better one. And when you can start to, as a dungeon master, help, you want to give options. You don't want to railroad. You want to let the table speak and sit back. But you can help inform and help them create. That's ultimately what players want to do, is just make the best decisions possible, right? So there it is. That's just some brilliant. The DM, as good as he is, as well as he can speak and everything else, sitting back. Obviously, Matt Mercer has incredible strengths as an NPC guy because of his voice acting background and all this other stuff. And his NPCs are the best I've ever seen played by any DM. But in this particular case, I wanted to just highlight when it's time for you to just sit back, let the players wrangle through it, and when and how to jump in to help them move forward. What's next? Let's take a look at Christopher Perkins. This is a much older video. Here we go.
The celebration of the red box, we're going to run a little game here. My name is Chris Perkins, and I am your humble DM, your humble and merciful DM. Although you may have heard that I like to brutalize my players, it's not true.
So very quickly, the setup. Here you have that guy right there, Ian Livingstone, I think. Livingston, with the blue checkered shirt, is the founder or one of the creators of Games Workshop. Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy, all that. He's the businessman behind it. But anyway, you have like a table of what would be kind of like a celebrities, so to speak, right? And like a one-shot. So here you don't have nearly the same familiarity of DM with players. So, and also I think there's a certain sense that some of these players may be completely new, or they've been away from the hobby for 30 years and they don't know this version of D&D, which I think they're playing 4th edition. So this definitely is a little bit older. But notice the little details of how open Chris is, right? There's no barrier. There's no DM screen. There's no laptop. Obviously, technologically, you probably didn't have D&D Beyond and such then. But Chris has all the dice in front of him. He's rolling in front of the players. There's a map set up, right? There's the visual aids and all the miniatures ready to go when he can put out there. The players can look at them, but they're not going to say, oh my gosh, we're fighting all those monsters. But Chris just has sort of all the props and visual pieces ready to go to complement his narrative and his story. which keeps this smooth gameplay, but also when you're dealing with newer players, it helps you quickly put sort of a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So notice just how elegantly Chris weaves in the story, sits back, explains and handholds them maybe even more than Matt was or whatever, right? And not letting the players figure things out too much, answering the questions quickly, but also having the props and all the pieces in place. So there it is.
Basically, you guys are second level, and so you've had some experiences together, and maybe you've, lost one or two members over your short but illustrious adventuring careers. But at this point in time, there's sort of a general assumption that you kind of know each other a little bit. And you've sort of come to trust each other on a number of encounters that have pitted you against kobolds and against a white dragon and various other threats as you've been exploring a dungeon complex known as the Twisting Halls. And all you really know about the Twisting Halls is that this dungeon was built long, long ago by a reclusive sect of minotaurs. And they had all kinds of weird things down here, altars dedicated to primal deities and things like that. And much of your recent adventures have taken place in the Twisting Halls, and actually you've cleared out a great deal of it.
Notice some of the strengths there early on, right? When you're dealing with newer players, you don't want to keep a lot of secrets. And that's something you have to kind of elegantly weave through for yourself, right? And what I mean is secrets are good because you can keep new players in the dark and provide that sort of fog of war, video game speak. I'm always remembering like when I'm playing StarCraft 2 and I can't see the Zerg rush coming, but I know it's coming. Anyway, it's good to keep some, those mysteries there because it creates that. It creates a mysterious game and it allows things to be more imaginative. But notice how Chris kind of answers some very basic questions that even veteran role players, or should I say, a group of players that have been playing, in my case, my table is not only filled with a bunch of veteran role players, we've been playing together, many of us, for 25 years. So we definitely know each other. Okay? But some of the big questions is, do I know that character? Like, do I know the dwarf and the elven fighter? Why is he with us? Do I know what he can do? And do I trust him? So with new players, he's kind of handled up front. You guys are level 2. You've already had some adventures together. You know each other. So you start to build that trust immediately. And then the fact that he threw in, you guys have fought some creatures together, so you've seen combat before. And then he throws in, you're exploring a dungeon and it's called this, and here's the little bit you know about it. He's answering so many questions up front because one thing that's going to happen with new groups and new players, they're going to ask questions. And when you can kind of, as a DM, have that sort of authoritative, definitive stance on here's the answers already up front, you allow the players to now get more engrossed in your story because up front, they already know we know each other. We know why we're traveling together. We know that we have fought together, so I can trust this person to get my back. We know kind of why we're in the dungeon, and we know where we are. By answering all that, the players can just sort of sit back and enjoy the story that's being told. So Chris is one of the best DMs for new players in that regard, not only because as part of the design team and whatnot, the guy knows the rules like the back of his hand, but you can tell he's just sort of prepared very well. Okay, so here we go.
And much of your recent adventures have taken place in the Twisting Halls, and actually you've cleared out a great deal of it. And as you are sort of plumbing the dungeon, looking for secret chambers and other places that you may have missed, you stumble upon a pair of elf druids who were like the last people you expected to find deep underground. And one of them introduces himself to you as Valerian. And at first, they seem to be hiding from you. Like they didn't know exactly what to expect when they saw these lights approaching down this passageway.
Prepared with miniatures, and I love, watch what he says when the players put their miniatures on the mat.
What I'd like you to do is to take your characters and just sort of arrange them over here for the time being. So you guys have been And it's not important where you guys are at this point in time. We can reconfigure you as needed as we go. And by the way, if you have any questions during the game, just feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to sort of answer them to the best of my ability.
New players, you're getting the visual cue. You're hearing the story and you're going into imagination mode and you're picturing it, but then you also see the mat on the table. You see the relationship as to the reference point of where's my character, right? Whatever. Maybe one of them is thinking, do I need to attack? Do I need to be on guard? How close am I? The characters, the miniatures oriented to where those two druids are shows space. It starts answering questions visually. All the players can now stare and see how close we are interacting. But his mention that it's not important where they are right now, it allows the pacing to continue and giving the players confidence that should things go down and we need to fight, we can adjust marching order because logically the fighter probably would have wanted to have been closer to the druids and so on. So not bogging it down right now with the minutia of like, are you within 5 feet of the paladin to make sure you're getting that saving throw? You know what I mean? Let's just moving forward with the story and giving that visual part. So that was really, really well done.
So as you guys are making your way down this passage, and you're pretty sure there are no monsters in the area, you've totally cleared this area out, a pair of elves sort of peek at you from behind a curtain. Very sort of comical, almost sort of Scooby-Doo style.
So there we go, right? I just love the setup, how prepared he was. He's got his miniatures in front of him. There's no barriers. And it just is a good sort of contrast of sort of newer players, people that maybe don't know each other outside of business relationships or something like that. Not as new technology, right? You don't have all these fancy pieces. You notice he doesn't have Dwarven Forge out. He just has a mat and some miniatures, probably not even playing 5th edition D&D and so on. But just is very good with understanding the audience and reading the table. Also, this is very important and something that never really, I don't want to say never, it doesn't happen much at my table because we just have a different relationship, a communication relationship. Notice just how quiet, when the DM is doing their thing, how quiet the players and respectful they are, and also how quiet and respectful Matt Mercer's players were. So it goes a long way when the DM is on point to not have to repeat himself. Even if he's not talking directly to your character, there may be some information that your character needs that you should have listened to. So just pay more attention. Here we go. Number 3. Jeff Kanata.
I've got a war to win, so if you excuse me.
Your Majesty, and I'm going to step out from behind Uggo.
Yeah,
Tabaxi.
you see Uggo tense up.
Same with
And
Behemoth.
I give a very regal bow. And then I come back up. I have one question for you.
I suppose you've earned it.
If we were to perhaps broker a truce between the orcs and the dwarves, would you put your name to paper?
Are you an emissary from the orcs? Speak the truth, I'll know it.
No.
No.
Why do you have this offer if you bring an orc to me? And you say you can broker the orcs, and you're telling me you're not a representative of Oakdoon or Thorn?
Not at all.
Explain yourself, Tabaxi.
I have
What gives you this power?
I have connections in Thorn and Oakdoon. I could speak to the orcs, and I could broker a truce. They would pull back their armies so long as you put pen to paper and stop this war to protect your own people so that there is no further bloodshed. And I look back at Dondo.
My king, we have spoken at length about how we both want to end this war. These heroes offer a chance, and I have spoken to them. None of them would dare lie.
And I look back at the king and smile brightly.
We stand on the precipice of victory because of what you have done.
Yes.
You have stopped the cannon. We have a chance. Even now, North Gaboon cleans up bodies of orcs that you led directly into a trap. And you tell me to stop. You tell me not to claim the victory that is Ruzar Forbrand's to claim. You tell me to talk. Well, we've talked. You tell me to stop. Well, we've stopped. I tell you, I want to win.
Well, if I may, winning to us is not taking out the orcs. Winning to us is saving the entirety Vine, taking down the Ashen Mage, Urtenfurt, anyone who's working together, and saving the wardens who can protect everyone.
None of that concerns my people.
It does.
I'm fighting the orcs. I'm protecting their lives.
The orcs are but pawns. You know they are. I'm sorry to speak out of turn, but this is ridiculous.
I would even say that perhaps, knowing what we know of the Ashen Mage, that you are being used as a pawn and don't even know it.
How dare you, orc? My king. Give them a chance. Peace is possible here. Peace is what we've dreamed of our whole lives.
Dondo has spoken about the great potential of your people, of the creative, of the engineering, of all of the potential.
All lost. Lost.
Yes.
It is but the battle.
And is it going to be regained while this war continues on and on and on?
That's why we need to end it. Kill it.
How?
Crushing our enemies.
Every single orc. Because you know that's probably what it's going to take. And how long will that take? You won't be around, I guarantee you.
Look, why don't you think about it, right? There's time. And I wouldn't presume to... I don't want to rush you, right? You're a busy person, you're a busy king, lots of kingly duties. So, take your time. And in the meantime, we'll be out trying to save as many people as we can and bring peace to the world.
It is in no way an acknowledgement that you are weak in any way by saying that this cadre of powerful beings, this Ashen Mage, this Urtenfurt, have affected ways that you have not seen. You, as she says, are great in all the things that you do. But there are very powerful people pulling strings from very far away.
We can stop it there. This goes on. I mean, this game is called the Dungeon Run. I made a video about it just recently, or I mentioned it. I think they're on Twitch now because their host, I guess, if you will, kind of the platform they were streaming this under, either canceled them or they're no longer part of it, so they're doing their own thing. Yes, we're looking at some pretty high level theater actors, right? Voice actors. The DM, Jeff Kanata, I mean, he's fabulous. There's a reason why this is my third video, and then the next one. The last two are my favorite Dungeon Masters. I love that Jeff always stands up. I've watched a lot of the Dungeon Run stuff, and you'll get more of this treatment. The players are incredible. It's... More importantly, I think that the emphasis here is from the Dungeon Master point of view. He stands up a lot, right? And just you cannot create a certain feeling, right? When you're playing as an NPC or you're explaining a situation without gesture, without your body, without posture. And oftentimes when you want to create they're all sitting down. They're speaking to a dwarven king. He's standing up. Yes, I know the dwarf is short. And Ugo, the guy at the end over there, I think his name is Ron, the real life person. He's playing an orc, like full-blood orc. I don't think he's half-orc. But the fact that he's just standing up gives a certain level of superiority. You're kind of talking down to the people. But notice the respect that they're given, but yet they know they play a bigger part here. They might be able to influence a war. But most importantly, the lesson learned from this and why I chose this clip, the entire time, Jeff was not a dungeon master. He was just the Dwarven King and his, assistant or commander or whoever. Jeff was not playing and speaking to them as the DM. He just lost himself and presented things as the character would, the king. And that's why I think it felt like you're watching like a little mini movie. It was so pleasant to watch and be a part of, and it just feels so epic. But a huge part of that is the way the players, it obviously started with, I forget his name, but he's a Tabaxi rogue, I think. I forget his name, but the guy on the end, and I forget his real life name, I apologize, but the one who said, I can broker a truce and so on. The way that all the other players just sat quiet when it was that player's moment. And then when the king was speaking, all of that would have lost so much value if there were like little off-kilter jokes made off in the corner, right? It was a very tense moment because the king has the authority to say, put them in prisons, right? You know, the players know statistically, combat roll initiative, they're way out of their league here. You're dealing with royalty in front of you, right? And you're on the same side, but you've got that dwarven vengeance grudge nature that they don't want to let go of, and you have a chance to possibly change and save lives here. So the players know they're, you know, way above their pay grade, but they still have something to say. And it just was an elegant interaction, but most importantly, I just love how Jeff kept the perspective of, I'm talking to you as the king. I'm not Jeff, I'm not the DM. And by leaving it that way, it created a beautiful, beautiful scene. So very well done. So anytime that you can do that, when it's real important, learn how to get deeply into the character, okay? Absolute favorite DM, and I'll show why, and she highlights it here.
Boogied well. We're going down.
When you close the door behind you, it does muffle the sound. Yes.
We're going down to the sewers.
Does Lockheed run back and join you, I assume?
Lockheed's still dancing.
Okay, Lockheed's
right now,
still
just
entertaining.
to cover us, because
Gotcha.
Sam's going to be like, what? The sewers?
That's none other than Kevin Smith himself. So again, you're dealing with like a celebrity group. I think Kevin has never played before, or he's heard about it or whatever, but new player. You have some other players that look like they've played before. This is not Deborah Ann Woll's first rodeo as a dungeon master, so she's very experienced. Lockheed is his familiar, I think, his little imp. So
Lockheed, as an imp, glows.
He does?
Yeah.
I'll give it to you a little bit.
Thank
He's
you.
very reflective.
Yes, he's not, so we can use him to light our way.
Okay.
So is he coming with us?
Yeah, we'll bring him back
We
down.
open the door just a
So
smidge.
yeah, Lockheed stops. He gives a real dramatic bow. Everyone cheers.
And Lockheed, like, this is where Lockheed breaks with me, Sam Hain, because he's like, no, I want to dance. But I'm like, we need you, buddy. Come on. He's like, oh. And then he joins it.
He darts through. You open it at 2 inches.
He's having his own personal footloose, but we're not on an adventure. We need his help.
He slips through the door and is with you guys.
Hello, imp.
Hello.
He floats down. It's very dainty and very cool, and he sort of floats and drifts, and he ends up down there.
Look at his maneuvering.
I know, it's
good.
nuts.
This little thing, like a glider. And he gets down, and still looking through his eyes, you can see these. This is just long expanses of tunnels. And every so often, you can see that there must be a grate at the top as light shines down onto the ground in kind of a pattern.
Shall we break up and go down
Pop
each
down
tunnel?
first.
No.
So I can
Stay
float
together?
down.
Yes.
All right, so you're gonna float down. All right, so Beryl jumps, and feather falls, right, and lands very nicely.
You want to go next?
I think one of you two should. I'll flank you.
All right, I go down, and as I go down, I'm looking up to see if it says melted shoe, if it's labeled.
As you get down, yes, you do notice that on the side of the ladder, someone has written "melt the shoe" along the side of that.
Thank you.
Well done.
Where are you going tonight? The shoe?
I'll follow after.
Okay,
Annabella.
you're next.
I also jump down into the sewer.
Okay, and Veros
And
is
then
last to
I
climb
flank
down.
Sam.
Do you close it after
Professional
you?
sense. Yes, and I'm going to close the latch behind me, and I descend.
Oh, open the latch. It's so... we need a venting.
When the door closes, the sound is almost perfectly muffled. You can no longer hear it. And now there's just an eerie, still quietness, a little bit of drips. And every once in a while, you can hear a sort of clunk, clunk, clunk above you as people walk over the grates and over your head. You can go right or left.
Now, we do have this map we've gotten.
Ah!
We don't know which of these ladders is the entrance we've gone down. So there.
So that's what we know.
Yeah.
I would like to do some type of an investigation check to see which ladder is labeled City Hall or Governor. Or
So you don't see any other ladders right where you are. Where you are, there's just the ladder going up into
So we
the
have to, like,
shoe.
literally go left
They're
or right.
just
Yeah.
tunnels.
We have to discern
I think
that.
Ricky has something to say.
I have it. There are two options to where we could be.
Watch everything Deborah Ann Woll does. She's played with all of the, she's run Matt Mercer through games. She's been in Matt Mercer's game, a lot of them, Matt Colville, right? Like they all kind of weave in together. They all know each other. She's an actress as well. She knows the game well. She knows the rules. But most importantly, her greatest strength, which was shown there, she does it all the time. And I think it's something I'm trying to work towards very, very strongly. I also don't have the same presence sitting across from the screen because she is a talented, beautiful, anything on her at all. Listen to her sing. So her voice work, her voice control, her presence, acting, knowledge of the game. But most importantly, she's so good at feeding off of the players and giving them their moment and just kind of not saying no. The rules, like feeding off of the excitement of a player and allowing them to have their moment. Kevin Smith, director, right? Famous guy, celebrity. He maybe doesn't know the game. He doesn't know. But he just comes up with the story that his familiar glows, therefore they can use it as a light source to navigate their way. There's nothing in the rules that say that, but there's a level of excitement that he has in explaining that or leaning into the whole, like, my imp is a dancer. And throughout this whole little, not just this clip, but kind of 20 minutes before and after, there's this whole interaction as he pulls his imp out and goes into like this, they're in like a nightclub or something like this or whatever, right? And there's music being played by a band. And she keeps on just leaning into how excited they are when they come up with some flavor bits and some story bits that maybe doesn't seem to be rules as written, but she allows it to happen. And she gives them, she doesn't steal the player's creative juice and the creative input. Instead of just not only allowing it, she fosters it. She lumps story and narrative and her passion and her excitement on top of it to create just really pleasant situations. And she's a master at that. She's my favorite dungeon master. She's also, I'm biased, she's the easiest for me to watch. Very, very talented dungeon master and person. So that's the last clip. My favorite DM, the last two. Jeff Kanata, I think, is brilliant. I love his campaign. You should watch all those characters and whatnot. But that's a long one, but we kind of interjected there by throwing in a few different video snippets. Hopefully there's something there that you can kind of grab hold of, that you might like, that you might lean into to help you become a better DM and player. And I think more importantly, from the player perspective, I know this is very DM heavy and centric. Notice how quiet they were. Notice how they were willing to listen, how they were willing to sit back until it was their moment. And that allows the gravitas, the impact of any situation, of any negotiation, any communication, any spoken piece to really have a lot more weight when it's not being interrupted or not being kind of dissipated by others' comments or words or laughing or giggling. Have fun at the table. We do all the time. But when it's that moment, that 3-minute moment, give it that moment. So as players, learn to listen. As DMs, learn to listen, feed off your players, so on and so forth. So there you go. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you guys later.